Good afternoon, Eddie. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Happy to be pre recording this with you. We will miss you on Saturday, which is the official date of the Homebuyer webinar. But I felt it very necessary for you to speak to buyers about the importance of the home inspection. So I'll let you, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, about your company, how long you've been in the business, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Alrighty. Well, good afternoon. Happy New Year. Like you said, my name is Eddie Jones. I'm the owner of Good Life Inspection Services. I actually started doing inspections in South Carolina. I started back in 2018. I've been doing them in Atlanta since June of 2020. So we for the most part, cover the greater Atlanta area. Um, and pending certain circumstances, we'll go outside of that as far as Georgia's concerned.
Yeah.
I'm licensed to do inspections in South Carolina as well. And we'll be adding North Carolina here to the map shortly with a goal to obviously continue adding inspectors.
Okay, that's awesome. So you cover South Carolina, you cover Atlanta, because you certainly did, I think, an inspection for me in Calhoun, Georgia.
Mm,
And so you're adding North Carolina to the mix as well.
correct.
All right, that is awesome. So tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, all of that good stuff.
As my friends would say, I'm from all over. I'm originally born in New York, but I was raised in Florida. So I just tell people I'm from Florida. That's where I spent the most of my years. And then I went away to high school in Virginia, and college in South Carolina. So I'm well versed on the East Coast.
I see.
Um, I've lived in Charlotte. It's one of my favorite cities, hence why I want to get a North Carolina license because it borders South Carolina. So I pretty much cover the East Coast from Virginia to Florida. I've lived in every state.
Okay, well,
So
that's
full
awesome.
time, I right full time. Obviously, I do inspections, but I'm also a member of the South Carolina Army National Guard, and in a couple of months it'll be 11 years of service. So just taking it one drill at a time, as I like to say.
Okay, well, of course, thank you for your service. We appreciate you. As you assist military personnel in keeping our borders safe. We thank you for that. And 11 years, that seems like a long time. You don't even look that old, Eddie. I'm trying to figure this
Right.
out.
Either I joined as a kid or I'm aging well.
Hey, take the latter. That's what I tell people. And I tell them, real estate is for 13 years. So, it's a lucrative business. Definitely, we need our home inspectors. I often tell my buyers, I say, Georgia is a buyer beware state. And when we say buyer beware, that basically means that, sellers, they complete a seller's property disclosure statement. But, human error, we can't remember everything, right? Sometimes we can't even remember what we came in the next room for. So,
Right.
in the state of Georgia, it is the buyer's responsibility to get an inspection. And that is how, if something unforeseen happens with the property that was not disclosed, it was not inspected, you have a leg to stand on. In the event that you have to go through litigation, in my 13 years of real estate, I've never had to go through it. But I can say that you've definitely been an asset to Trish Sells Atlanta because you get the inspections out pretty quickly. Like once we're under contract, like within 24 to 48 hours, you're inspecting, which is great because, those due diligence periods have gotten so small. So let's talk a little bit about why inspections are just so vital in a real estate transaction.
Definitely. And to, you know, hit on a comment that you said that we do our inspections so quick. in this industry, I realize if we don't have a quick turnaround and get our reports back quick, then we won't be valued as much from realtors such as yourself. Because there's a lot of realtors that, I mean, excuse me, inspectors that do turn down business because they don't like the last minute notification, or, they're not really, wanting to get after it. But the way I look at it, the entire industry is last minute.
You
Um,
know what?
so,
You may
so
be going to something with that, Eddie.
I may be pushing us hard over here, but no, I love it. I love it. I love the thrill. I work well on. And then as far as the importance of an inspection, so in general, I think it's just important because most people that are buying a house have that eye of awe. They're just happy to be buying a home, especially if it's their dream home. They're not looking, they don't understand how a house is set up and how it's designed to operate and function. They're just caught up on, I really like it, the cosmetics, the layout, things like that. So, an inspector, although not necessarily a code inspector, is trained to come and inspect and make sure certain system and components are set up the way they're supposed to. And there's a difference between set up and operate. Um, Georgia is in particular, state is because, like you mentioned, it's the buyers, get their own inspection, are required to get their inspection. However, Georgia doesn't, buyer beware. Georgia doesn't regulate home inspections, so it's a very saturated market. And
Mhm.
believe it or not, I do a lot of, well, I do some, home buyer centers. There's a lot of realtors that don't know that.
Mhm.
Tell them you should be, and even if it's not good luck, whatever, you should never do business with an inspector if his credentials can't be verified by a reputable, which there's only two, by a reputable, company providing certificates to home inspectors.
Mhm.
Because, like I said, Georgia doesn't regulate, so any Joe Smo could be doing your inspection. You literally, file in the LLC and you're a home inspector. But all of these surrounding states are not on that page. You actually have to have some sort of formal training, education, and then pass a state exam.
Wow. Yeah, being in the business for as long as I have, I've come across a few inspectors, and as I previously told you, I worked with an inspector for like just as long as I've been in the real estate business, and he retired, and so I was because of my knowledge, because he was certified and had his certificates. When I was looking and kind of interviewing other inspectors, that's one of the things that caught my eye with you. I said, okay, well, he's already credentialed. And so, and you said it's two, I guess, different credentials, but just as
Yes.
a rule of thumb, people should look at, those certifications. I didn't realize that you all had to take a state exam as well, in some of these other states. Even though Georgia isn't regulated, but hopefully we will get regulated. I think part of that is because we have not we've had a lot of litigation, but I guess not enough for them to pass a law to regulate it. So tell us a little bit about just when you go into a home, your process, because typically how it works, buyers, is when I'm communicating with the other agent and it appears that we may be going under contract, I start reaching out to Eddie then. So if we are waiting on signatures, if you need to sign, if I need to sign, I'm generally touching base with Eddie. Hey, Eddie, I might be going up under contract. I just wanted to let you know because we're trying to get on his schedule. When you do a contract, as I would have explained, um, you have a due diligence period. The average due diligence period right now is between 3 and 5 days. So it's vital for Eddie to get out there as soon as possible. So that's why he is contacted as soon as possible. So that way, if he does have any space in his calendar for us, that he'll go ahead and stick us right in. So tell them a little bit about after I call you, the process.
So right, yeah, to your point, after you call, we just pretty much, we look at the calendar, we coordinate, and whatever days that you say you need it within, I would like to think 99.9% of the time we'll find a way. We don't like turning down business over here.
Mhm.
But once it's scheduled, then I'll go ahead and it depends on who's scheduling it, but we'll touch base with the client and figure out if they're going to be present or not, if the home is vacant, occupied, because all of those things matter. And then we'll get on site and start the inspection. And this is where the fun begins, because although I work with many realtors, do bulk inspections for companies,
Mhm.
I'm not everybody's favorite inspector. Because I try. I gotta stop saying try. I'm as thorough as possible, and obviously, that goes against what some people are trying to do. But the way I look at it is, when I have missed an issue or didn't note something that I wasn't required to, what was a problem, or the buyer didn't like how I noted it, I
Mhm.
get the call, not the realtor. Or if the realtor does get the call, it still comes back to me, and I have to personally address that issue.
Right.
Granted, I've never been, sued, but obviously I've had cases where the homeowner or buyers have became the homeowners, moved in, and something happened, and I had to be the one to walk through and break it down to them. And luckily, I've come out on top every time. But I'm going to be as thorough as possible. And for a buyer, if you don't get anything else out of this, this recording, the most important thing you could do with a home inspector is actually read the agreements you sign. Nobody ever reads them. If
Mhm.
if 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 a realtor sends me a note to schedule inspection right now, and I send it out 2 seconds later, it'll be signed. But that agreement, my agreement, is several pages. They just sign and pay. Nobody reads it, so you don't understand exactly what the home inspector is looking for, what he does and does not inspect. We don't move things. We don't go out of our way to move things. So we start the process. It goes from the roof down to the foundation. Generally, depending on the setup, I move around the exterior twice, like excuse me, I move around the perimeter twice, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm gonna look at your HVAC unit to make sure it's properly set up, the age of it, things like that. I'm gonna make sure your foundation is not crumbling. If the mortar needs to be repointed, if there's any shifting, visible shifting, things like that. There's a crawl space that's feasible to maneuver around. We'll put our knee pads on and get to it. There's an attic. We go in the attic and see what we can see. Make sure there's insulation. Make sure it's efficient insulation. And then we work our way down, from upstairs to downstairs. Some people ask, why do you do that? It's method to the madness. You work your way from top to bottom, so that way when you're running water, you're flipping all the lights. By the time you get to the bottom, if there was a lead from upstairs to downstairs, we should hopefully see it. If all the power is on in the house, now we know that the house is capable of handling the load if everything is on, things
Mhm.
like that. So it's a non-invasive but yet thorough process that we complete. And then usually that same day, that report will go out to the agent and the buyer. And then if they have any questions, obviously they reach back out.
Yes, absolutely. And there's been times I've had to reach out to you to clarify something that the seller, we may have requested from the seller and they needed clarification. So thank you for that. One of the things that buyers like to do is they like to come to the inspection. So tell us a little bit about your process concerning that, because of course you do want to meet with them at the inspection, but at the same time you have a job to do. So how do you kind of navigate that for our buyers?
I personally don't have an issue with buyers coming to the inspection, but if they, wanted to know what worked best for me, I would tell them to come towards the end. And the only reason that is because when you follow myself or one of my inspectors around on their hip, literally the entire inspection, it
Mhm.
throws us off. We get
Yeah,
sidetracked and then you get shortchanged in the end. So if we miss something, you'll be calling us. It happens. We're only human. We're I train and I taught my inspectors we inspect the house a certain way. And so when they get sidetracked, they might forget to go back to it. And then, people like to have conversations. So we're supposed to be inspecting and you're talking about your life the whole time. I'm like, oh man, come on, I forgot this. When we leave a property, nobody ever wants to go back because they forgot to do something or didn't remember something. So I don't have an
right,
issue with it. There's just some clients that just want to be there. That's fine. But if
right.
it was up to me, I would say, come on the back in that last 30 minutes when I'm wrapping up, and then we can sit down and go over the summary together.
Okay.
Some people, we go down it line by line, and some just want to know the highlights, whatever your preference is.
Well, that's awesome to hear and know. I generally communicate with my clients to go at the end, so that gives you a large window of undistracted time where you are going through the house. So, kudos to that. So, if you could tell us one of the, I guess, worst inspections that you've done, or one of the worst, like you went into a house and you were like, oh my God, like what is happening? You give us some details about that, and then we'll go to the best house you ever saw.
Well, for me, that's an easy question because I'm fortunate to receive inspections from bulk in bulk. So a lot of some of these companies that you all may see on a daily basis on commercials, I'm fortunate to get some of those, via bulk. So I see what we call, the utmost bando. I mean, non is uninhabitable, fallen over, completely molded. Um, out of the I mean in Atlanta, out of the several hundred inspections I've done in the last year and a half, there's been maybe three houses I just literally couldn't stand in. So I just ran in there, took my pictures, did what I had to do, holding my nose, and ran out of there and filled out the report later because it was so bad.
Oh wow.
Yeah, being an inspector is a humbling experience because a lot of people live in houses that would kill you. There's no middle. It's either making their immune system undefeated, unstoppable, or
Let's
or it's
talk
killing
about
them.
it, especially COVID being so prevalent. Now we have a new variant. But I saw a post. It was on Facebook, and it was the ducks that was in the house that were like, I mean, it was reminiscent of your dryer vent, but it was
Hmm.
caked with just stuff. I was
Yeah,
like, oh my
yeah.
goodness. Then even the mold situation. So, people may not know mold and mildew has a smell, y'all. Um,
Hmm.
Certain type of
But it
insects
doesn't always.
smell.
You can have it and still not smell something.
Really?
Um,
Because I've heard of
it.
people painting over mold.
Yeah.
So,
So let's talk about that for a second.
okay.
'Cause this is, you touched the nerve.
Oh,
Um, a lot of people don't realize. So I actually own a mold remediation company. We
oh,
just, I'm just so busy doing inspections every day. I don't market or do anything. So I'm,
good
yeah,
to
I'm
know y'all.
certified and trained. I'm certified and trained by the best to do molds. So, oh, that was my computer. So every day or often I get calls and people want to paint over mold, put bleach on mold, vinegar on mold, and then when they ask for my expert advice and I provide it, it's like it's a foreign language. If I go into a apartment complex, and a tenant, is at wits with the company, the leasing company, or whatever the case may be, because they're painting over their mold, and I'm telling them this is a process. Uh, Mold is really, it can be detrimental to people's health and
Mhm.
to, you know, a couple myths. Bleach doesn't kill mold. Bleach
Oh,
discolors mold,
oh,
right? That is,
I didn't
unless, exactly, unless a person is trained by the IICRC, um, that's the only real credible, number one organization. They may be shortchanging you. There's a reason why mold remediation just costs so much money, because a lot goes into it. When you have mold on a drywall,
know. Hmm.
and homeowners or buyers want to move in but don't want to get the remediation and they paint over it or bleach it, you may make it dormant, but take note that anytime mold has a food source, meaning the moisture and the
Hmm.
drywall, in this case, organic material made from trees, it's going to grow again. So you can paint it, hide it. It may be dormant for a while, but it can become active again. The only way to physically remove mold from drywall is to physically remove the drywall.
Wow. So you are telling me, because I've seen people even spray some type of protein spray for mold. So you're telling me that even if they painted over it, they put
Mhm.
bleach on it, they put this protein spray on it, that mold, it may be dormant, but it's still there,
It's
and that
still
you have to
there.
place the drywall to actually physically get rid of it.
Yes. They just encapsulated it. That's all they
Mhm,
did. They encapsulated it, which will buy you some time if done right. But when
mhm,
that encapsulation is shot again and it's bubbling, the paint is peeling, it could be
man,
right back at it. But again, keep in mind that just because you encapsulate something, that really doesn't mean that the mold spores in the air and all of that are clear, because that's what's really important. Only a doctor can advise someone, of what the consequences of breathing in all that mold is, depending on the kind. So just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not planning impact on you, not impacting you.
and then mold has different colors, right?
Yeah, so mold is a fungi. It can be brownish, blackish, greenish, whitish. A lot of times in the crawl space, that fungal growth will be whitish. But yeah, it can vary in colors, but mostly black.
Okay. So mold is one of the disclosures that we make to buyers. When they sign on to become a client with Trish Sells Atlanta, we have a slew of brochures that we send out. Mold is one of them. Lead based paint. That's the
Mm,
other one. And I know, these are for homes that were built prior to 1978. And one of the
yep,
things that I try to convey to buyers is that, their house may have been built, back then. Let's say we had a house that was built in 1965, but they gutted it down to the stud. They renovated it, all that good stuff. However, they still have to sign a lead based paint exhibit just for liability purposes. Can you tell us a little about the lead based paint and why that's one of the things that they have to sign?
So yeah, I know a little about lead, although I'm not a professional. That's actually one of the things I don't.
You
like to
don't really get
handle over
it.
here, right? But um, lead definitely is important, even if the house is flipped. And I'll put asbestos in that as well, because they're
Okay.
both really of the same caliber. Obviously, beyond 1978, the US was smart enough when the building codes got up to speed to realize, like, hey, this stuff is actually detrimental to our health.
Mm-hmm.
And once you, especially when you start, bumping it and knocking into it and releasing particles in the air, then it actually can be, of cancers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it is definitely important. And that's why when people ask me about it, I say call a professional.
Oh, got
Call a
it.
professional. If you don't hire an abatement specialist, a lead specialist,
Okay.
you're shortchanging yourself. If you're talking mold, radon, things like that, I got you. But those guys are just as trained in that stuff as I am in my stuff, and I would never step on their toes because I think people. I'm not. It's funny when people buy houses. Another thing that I find real funny.
Mm-hmm.
I see people buy houses that cost several $100,000. And
Mm-hmm.
then when it's time to review the home inspection pricing or the prices for ancillary service, which lead, mold, asbestos, radon, all of that is an ancillary service. They always want to negotiate a price down.
Mm-hmm.
If you can make such an investment, especially if you're putting down 20%, even if it's 10, for a house that costs, we'll say at least 100,000.
Okay.
Let's, even if all your fees over here cost 1,000, wouldn't you think that was worth the investment for
Yep.
your health? Because that's what it boils down to. I
Mm-hmm.
look at it that way. It boils down to your health because all of these mold, radon, asbestos, lead, three of them can cause like cancer, but they've all been proven to be a detriment to your health, depending on the person. But when it's time to get these inspections, some people don't want to pay.
Tell buyers about radon because that's something that we don't hear as prevalent. And since some of them may not, it may be their first time, tell them a little bit about this whole radon gas thing.
Yeah, radon, radon, radon. Yeah, most people don't know what radon is, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's really just say downplayed in the U.S. government in general, even though the EPA has it on its hit list. So radon is caused by the breakdown in uranium and the rocks and soils below your house. So normally, not so much with homes with slabs on grade, but it's possible. It could really happen anywhere. You stand a better chance in homes with basements and crawl spaces because they'll have, obviously gaps in the foundation and things like that. So as the soil and rocks are breaking down, that gas is being released and it's going up. You can't smell it, you can't see it, but over time, it's been proven to cause cancer. So radon is the number one cause of lung cancer in non-smokers and number two cause of cancer in smokers. And if you pull up a radon map across the country, Georgia may not be that bad. However, Georgia does have hot pockets, especially here in Atlanta. I do radon inspections often, and there are a lot of homes out here that are above that EPA, what they call action level of 4 picocurie liters, where they recommend you install a mitigation system. So there's a lot of homes out here in Atlanta above, but again, it's one of those things where unfortunately, you literally would never know you had it until it could be too late. If you live in a home for 15, 20 years and you end up with, lung cancer and you ain't never smoked in your life. And then, they test your home and you find out you have radon, it's just, unfortunately, it should almost be mandatory by law to get a radon inspection with a home inspection.
Mm. That's interesting, but again, I guess that's why here in the state of Georgia, they make that buyer beware thing, something that we have to advise, our buyers. And really quickly, before we kind of run out of time, tell everyone the difference between like a code inspector for like a new construction versus what you actually do, and how, this intertwines together so that, buyers are successful. Because traditionally with new construction, having an inspection done wasn't as prevalent. However, now it has become more prevalent. So give us a little bit of information about that.
Yeah, definitely. So briefly, I think right now it's only about 78% or something like that of US buyers that even get an inspection. But the difference between a code inspector and a general home inspector is a code inspector just shows up to your house to make sure that certain components of the house are built to the city standard. That's the construction of the roof, the electrical setup, things that pretty much the overall safety. That's all they care about. That's all they're focused on. Everything else in the house is not within their realm. A general home inspector is going to pretty much make sure from the roof down that everything is properly installed, but not necessarily. It's impossible for him or her to make sure that everything is operating correctly because they can't see everything when a house is complete. All right. So although it's not necessarily cosmetic heavy, a home inspector will tell you if there's a big hole in the wall in the master bedroom. A code inspector will walk right past that. He don't care about that. He's just making sure the roof is constructed the way it's supposed to. You have certain electrical standards. The house was on the right lot. The pipe to the street was good. He's just signing off on what the city expects the house to be built, based on the plans provided by
Mhm,
that builder and architect.
mhm.
So the code inspector is just making sure they're up to city standards, and the general home inspector is making sure that really a house is up to your standard.
Gotcha. So, um, correct me if I'm wrong. The recommendation is that you have a code inspector and you have a residential inspector that's going to look out for your best interest. Because I know typically, especially when it comes to different types of loans, which we have, also mortgage lender who's going to be talking about that, but they want to make sure that a home is safe, is sound, and that it's sanitary. And so basically, the code inspector makes sure that, I guess, it's safe, but then you have to check for everything else just to make sure that it is semi habitable.
Hmm.
When we have folks that are getting ready to purchase. And like you said, that percentage is very low when it comes to new construction, because people feel like, oh, it's brand new, nothing happens. But before we close out, tell people a little bit about, with new construction, what happens after you purchase this house, within probably a year. Give them some examples of what can occur.
Yes, so definitely would recommend that new inspection constructions happen for sure because there's no such thing as a perfect house. We do new construction over here time, and there's always a couple of issues. Now, to the builder's defense, I will say that when someone is getting a new construction inspection, the builder requires credentials be provided. So I'll say that, and they look at it as, well, if y'all gonna hire an inspector to double check us, they're gonna at least be, have valid credentials and know what they're talking about,
That's
which is
right.
also why some in builders go above and beyond, and they require more than just a regular like international or OSCE certificate. They
Right.
require you to have what we call a ICC certificate
Yes.
from the International Code Council. So now we actually have to know a little bit about code to complete the inspection. So I've seen everything, I've seen mold in a brand new house because a lot of people don't realize when they build a brand new house, spray it down. They spray the garage down and things like that. They hose it down or sometimes they come, they'll start building a house, the roof isn't complete and it rains.
Right.
That's not going to stop them from building. That material is all organic, right? It's wood,
Right.
it's trees. So mold can grow, things can happen. But normally, and I hate to say it, but normally what happens, the people that choose not to get an inspection,
Mhm.
or they don't hold their builder accountable for the deficiencies noted before they sign and move in,
Mhm.
it becomes very hard for them to get those issues fixed. So obviously the builder allots you a year to, get certain things corrected, or, issues touched up, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
It becomes very difficult. I've seen people builder down for months trying to get a response, even take legal action, because although they signed and moved in, and they read the contract, it said, oh, they'll fix it, no problem. I spoke with them. I always tell people, builders, they have a love them and leave them mentality, right? If you worked in corporate America like I did before I went out on my own, you love them and leave them. The
Yep.
builder loves you. They love you, while
Yep.
they building that house. But the moment you sign, they're
Yeah.
out of Dodge.
They're
They're
gone.
not in. They're in the business of building and moving on,
Yes.
especially this time of the year. Well, excuse me, December, because they were trying to get as many houses off the books as possible.
Yes.
Um, Not too many people have taken my personal advice that they asked for, but I know they wish they did when I said, make sure you get your deficiencies corrected before you sign.
Yep.
That's the best thing you can do, because the moment you sign, heaven forbid you had something serious going on. You'll be going back and forth with the builder for forever. And
Yep.
that's if you get a response.
Mm. Wow. I mean, that's a lot to think about, and I'm sure our buyers are going to have some additional questions, Eddie. So let me get some of your information up on the screen. If a buyer has a question for you, what is a good email address for you? I can't hear you. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Okay, I can hear you now.
Hello,
I can hear you now.
I think I lost you.
Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? I just can't hear you. I can't hear you, Eddie, but what I will do is I will share your information so that way if we have buyers who have like direct questions about, inspections and all of those things, they will have your information. And so I will put it on the screen for them. So if they need to email you or call you, in reference to inspections, we may even have somebody watching who bought a new construction and they say, oh, we want to go ahead and get an inspection because of our builder warranty. And they can get some of those deficiencies corrected prior to their warranty running out. So I would get that information on the screen to our buyers and, everybody who is watching. We just want to thank you for taking the time out today to just talk about how vital an inspector is. Some people give y'all a bad name, call y'all the deal killers, but we don't believe that. We believe that, you guys are disclosing what is going on with the house so that our buyers can make an informed decision regarding their real estate transaction. So even if they say, well, we know this is wrong with the house, but we're going to buy it anyway, they already know what is wrong with it and they can remediate it. So it's not always about, oh, you do the inspection, so we're going to cancel the contract. No, sometimes it's the art of knowing what's going on. So that way, if you can remedy the issue, you can. If it's something that may be too big, you can choose to go another direction. So Eddie, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come chat with us. And hopefully we have some buyers that will contact you. And as soon as we get ready to go up under contract, I will be in touch. Okay, we can't hear you, but have a wonderful day, and I will get your information up on the screen for our buyers to see. Have a good one. Thank you, Eddie.